Hi everyone, hope you've had a lovely day today. It's been a bit rainy, but it's a bit warmer at least. So hope you've had a good day though. And Nana's found another story about a hedgehog. So I thought, considering you've got a little hedge pig in your garden, you might want to know about this one because it's called the inquisitive hedgehog. So if you're sitting comfortably, then Nana will begin. There once was a most inquisitive hedgehog who liked to know everybody else's business. He used to shuffle around the ditches, listening to all the toad and the frog and trying to find out where the squirrel has hidden his winter nuts. The pixies that lived in the hedgerow were most annoyed with him, for he was always trying to find out their secrets. And, as you know, pixies have many magic secrets that no one but themselves must know. Whenever they met together to talk, they had to be sure to look under the dead leaves or behind the ivy to see if Prickles the hedgehog was hiding there, ready to listen. Now one day a wizard called Tonks came to visit the pixie Lightfoot, who lived in a small house in the bank of a hedgerow. This house had a little door hung over with a little curtain of green moss so that no one passing by could see it. Inside the door was a cosy room with little tables, chairs and couches, for Lightfoot often had parties and needed plenty of furniture. There was a small fireplace at one end, and on it Lightfoot boiled his kettle and fried his bacon and eggs for breakfast. Tonks was to come and have a very important talk with Lightfoot and the other pixies about the party that was to be given in honour of the fairy princess's birthday next winter. Prickles overheard the toad telling the little brown mouse, and he longed to know what day the party was going to be, and if the creatures of the hedgerow were to be invited as well as the fairy folk. But nobody could tell him, for nobody knew. "Nothing is decided yet," said the toad, "and even when it is, I don't suppose we shall know until the invitations are sent out, Prickles. You must just be patient." "Yes, but you see, I want to go and visit my grandmother who lives far away on the hillside," said Prickles, "and if I choose the week that the party is held, it will be most unfortunate." "Well, we shan't miss you very much," said the toad, going under his stone. He was not fond of the inquisitive hedgehog at all. Prickles wondered and wondered how he could get to know what the pixies would say when Tonks the wizard came to talk to them, and at last he thought of an idea. "If I creep into Lightfoot's house just before the pixies and the wizard get there to meet, and cover myself with a cloth, I shall look like a sofa or a big stool, and no one will notice me. Then I can lie quietly under the cloth and hear everything." He thought to himself, what a good idea. Doesn't sound very good to me. So he borrowed a red shawl from the old brownie woman who lived at Hazel Copse and stuffed it into a hole in the bank where an old wasp's nest had once been. Then he waited patiently for the evening to come when Tonks was to see the hedgerow pixies. At last it came. Prickles took his shawl out of the hole and went to where the green moss curtain hung over Lightfoot's little door. As he crouched there, looking like a brown clod of earth, the door opened and Lightfoot ran out. He was going to fetch some cakes. He left his door open and Prickles quickly went inside. The room was neatly arranged, with all the chairs and stools in a circle. Prickles pushed them about and made room for himself. He threw the red shawl over his prickly back and crouched down, looking like a couch without a back or a great stool. He was pleased. Now he would hear everything. Very soon Lightfoot came back. He was humming a little tune. He put the cakes neatly on a dish, which he placed on a table, and set the kettle on the fire to boil some water for tea. Presently there was a knocking at the door. Lightfoot opened it, and in came the pixies from the hedgerow, chattering and laughing. "Find seats for yourselves," said Lightfoot. "I'm just making tea. I've some cakes too, if you'd like to help yourselves." "We'll wait till old Wizard Tonks comes," said the pixies. They sat down on the chairs and began to talk. Prickles listened hard with both ears, hoping to hear a few secrets. Rat-tat-tat! Someone was knocking loudly at the door. It was Tonks the wizard. Lightfoot ran over to open it and bowed the old wizard into the cosy room. "Good evening, everyone," said Tonks. He was a round, fat wizard with white hair and a white beard, which was so long that he had to keep it tied up in a big knot, or he would have tripped over it. "Good evening," cried the pixies, and they all stood to greet him, for the wizard was a wise old fellow and everyone respected him. "Well," said Tonks, taking off his long black coat, "we have come to discuss the most important matter together, the party for the fairy princess this winter." "Won't you have a nice cup of tea and some cake before we begin the meeting?" said Lightfoot, coming up with a big cup of steaming hot tea. "Sit down and make yourself comfortable, Tonks." Tonks looked around for a seat. He was fat and rather heavy, so he chose the biggest seat he could see, which, as you've guessed, was Prickles the hedgehog under his red shawl. Tonks sat down heavily, holding his cup of tea in his right hand and a cake in his left. But no sooner had he sat down than he shot up again in a fearful hurry, shouting, "Ow! Ow! Ow! Pins and needles! What is it? Oh!" He was so scared by sitting down on the prickly hedgehog that he upset his hot tea all over the two pixies that were next to him. His cake flew up in the air and hit Lightfoot in the head and then came down. Dear, dear, what a commotion there was, to be sure. "What's the matter? What is the matter?" everyone cried. "Oh," said the wizard, rubbing himself hard, for the hedgehog was very, very prickly, and all the prickles had pricked Tonks when he sat down so hard. "Oh," said the two pixies who had been scolded by the tea. "Oh," said Lightfoot, wondering what had hit him. "How dare you put pins and needles on the seat left for me?" roared Tonks suddenly, shaking his fist in Lightfoot's face. "How dare you, I say?" "Whatever do you mean?" said Lightfoot, most astonished. "Don't talk to me like that, please, Tonks. I don't like it. And anyway, what do you mean by throwing your nice hot tea over my friends?" Prickles began to think he was going to get into trouble, so he very quietly started moving towards the door. But a pixie saw him and shrieked in fright, "Look, that sofa! It's walking! Oh, look at it! It's gone magic!" All the pixies looked at what they thought was a sofa walking towards the door. Tonks looked too. "Why, that's the sofa I sat down on," he cried. "It was as prickly as could be. Catch it! Quick, catch it!" Prickles was very frightened. He ran towards the door, and just as he reached it, a pixie pulled at the red shawl and he had thrown over himself. "Oh, look, it's Prickles, the inquisitive hedgehog," cried Lightfoot angrily. "He came here and hid himself to hear our secrets. No wonder poor Tonks thought he was sitting on pins and needles. Catch him!" But Prickles was safely out of the door. He banged it behind him and scurried off through the ditch. He made his way through the stinging nettles, and he ran to the hole in the bank that he knew very well. A big stone covered the entrance, and a fern grew over the stone. He would hide there. Tonks, Lightfoot, and all the other pixies raced after him. They did not like stinging nettles, so they went round them. By the time they got to the other side, Prickles was nowhere to be seen. Find him, raged Tonks. "I'll teach him to prick me. Yes, I will. I'll pull out all his prickles. I'll... Prickles heard all that Tonks was saying, and he trembled in his hole. He was safe there, and the stone and the fern hid him well. He did hope that no one would find him. And no one did. The pixies hunted for a long time and then gave up. "He must have gone to his grandmother on the hillside," said Lightfoot. "Let's go back." "Now listen," said Tonks fiercely. "You keep a lookout for that rascal of a hedgehog all the winter. As soon as he shows his nose, bring him to me. I'll keep him a fine meal of cooked needles for him, and I'll be going away to Dreamland in the springtime to find him before then." "Yes, Tonks," said the pixies. "We are always about this hedgerow, so we were sure to see him. Anyway, he'll turn up for the party, so we'll catch him then." Prickles heard every word, and how he trembled when he heard of the cooked needles. "Oh dear. I shan't go out of this hole until Tonks has gone to Dreamland," he decided, "and I'm not going to be caught." So all that winter, Prickles hid in his little hole. He did not go out to catch beetles or slugs, but just curled himself up and slept soundly. He only woke at night when he heard a great noise of laughing and chattering, and when he poked his nose out, he found that it was the party that was being given in honour of the fairy princess's birthday. Poor Prickles! He didn't dare go to it, and he saw the toad, the frog and the squirrel and the little brown mouse all hopping and running along to have a good time, but he had to keep close to his hole. It really served him right, didn't it? And do you know, it's a strange thing, but ever since that winter, hedgehogs have always kept all through the cold days. slept all through the cold days. Perhaps they are still afraid of Tonks. I shouldn't be surprised. Oh, that's why they hibernate after all of that. That's interesting, isn't it? I never knew that. What a naughty little hedgehog, though. So you've got a little hedgehog in your garden, and I hope he's good and not as inquisitive as this one was. This one's called Prickles, so you need to let Nana know what your hedgehog is called. So you say hello to your hedgehog for me and Grandad, and I will see you again tomorrow for another story. So I love you loads. So I love you, Ruby, and I love you, Max. I love you, Atty, and I love you, Torben. You be good, and I'll see you tomorrow. Night, night. Sleep tight. Mind the bed bugs don't bite.